The morning started like any other outside Buckingham Palace. Tourists pressed against the iron gates, cameras clicked, children pointed, but something was different that day, something that would change everything. Private James Miller stood perfectly still in his scarlet uniform. His bearskin hat added another foot to his height. His face showed nothing, not a twitch, not a blink. This was his duty. This was his pride, but inside, something was breaking. A man in a Hawaiian shirt pushed through the crowd. It was loud, too loud. His face was red from drinking. He stumbled toward James with a grin that made the other tourists step back. "Hey, toy soldier," the man shouted. "Do you even speak? Or are you just a statue?" James stared straight ahead. His training was absolute. Never react, never respond, no matter what. The man got closer. His breath smelled like cheap beer. "My kid wants a photo. You're gonna smile for us, right?" He waved his phone in James's face. The crowd watched. Some laughed nervously. Others looked uncomfortable. But no one said anything. It never did. The man's hand reached out. He poked James in the chest. Once. Twice. "Hello? Anyone home in there?" James's jaw tightened, just slightly. But his face remained stone. If you're wondering what happens when someone finally pushes too far, hit that subscribe button, because this story doesn't end the way anyone expected. The man turned to his son. "See? He's not even real, just a robot," laughed and poked James again. Harder this time. Then the man did something unforgivable. He reached up and grabbed the chin strap of James's bearskin hat. He tried to pull it off. Time seemed to slow down. The crowd gasped. Somewhere, a child started crying, and then James moved. Not the way anyone expected, not with anger, not with violence, but with something far more powerful. His eyes shifted, just his eyes. They locked onto the man with such intensity that the tourist actually stumbled backward. Those eyes held years of discipline, years of service, years of watching people treat him like he wasn't human, Sir James said, his voice low and controlled. "Step back now." The man's face went pale. The phone slipped from his fingers. Because in that moment, he realized something everyone else already knew. This wasn't a costume. This wasn't a show. This was a soldier, a real soldier who had served in Afghanistan, who had seen things most people couldn't imagine, who chose to stand here every day despite the mockery and disrespect. But the man's embarrassment quickly turned to anger. His face flushed red again. "You can't talk to me like that. I'm a tourist. I paid to be here." What happened in the next few seconds would be captured on dozens of cameras. It would go viral within hours. It would spark debates across the world. And it would change the rules forever. Because James wasn't alone anymore. From the palace gates, 3 other guards began to move. Their boots struck the cobblestones in perfect rhythm. Their faces remained expressionless. But their intent was clear. The tourist finally understood. He'd crossed a line that should never be crossed. And now, he was about to face the consequences. The 3 guards formed a line beside James. Their movements were mechanical, precise, each step perfectly timed with the others. The crowd fell silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. The tourist looked around for support. His wife grabbed his arm. "Tom, let's go," she whispered, "please." But Tom wasn't ready to back down. Not in front of all these people. Not after being embarrassed. "I didn't do anything wrong. He's just standing there. That's his job." Sergeant David Chen, the tallest of the approaching guards, stopped exactly 3 feet from Tom. His voice came out clear and sharp. "You assaulted a member of the King's Guard? You attempted to remove military equipment. You are in violation of the Official Secrets Act." Tom's mouth opened and closed. I just wanted a picture." "You grabbed his uniform," David continued. "That is assault. We have the authority to detain you until the Metropolitan Police arrive." The crowd's phones were all pointing at Tom now. Every angle, every expression. His son was crying. His wife's face had gone white. A young woman in the crowd spoke up. "He did grab him. I saw it. It was really disrespectful." Others nodded. The tide was turning. Tom was no longer a funny tourist having fun. He was a bully who had been caught. James remained in his position. But his breathing was deeper now, faster. Because what people didn't know was that this wasn't just about today. This was about every day, every hour, free shift standing in the heat or the freezing rain, while people treated him like furniture. 2 months ago, someone had thrown a drink at him. 3 months before that, a teenager had lit a cigarette and blown smoke directly in his face. Last summer, a group of college students had surrounded him and made jokes about whether he would react if they touched him. He never did. None of them ever did. Because that was the rule. That was the tradition. The royal guards were symbols. They were decorations for tourists to photograph. They were entertainment. But they were also human beings. Tom tried to walk away. David stepped forward. "Sir, you need to stay right there." "Or what?" Tom's voice cracked. The bravado was gone. He was scared now. Really scared. "Or we will physically detain you," David said simply. The crowd pressed in closer. Someone was live streaming. The view count was climbing. 500 people watching, then 1,000, and 5,000. Tom's wife started crying. "Please, we have a flight tonight. We're from Ohio." He didn't mean anything by it. He's had too much to drink. James finally spoke again. His voice was quieter now, sadder. "This happens every single day, multiple times a day. People think we're not real. They think this is Disneyland, but we're soldiers. We've served in combat. We've lost friends. We stand here because it's an honor, but we don't deserve to be assaulted." Something shifted in the crowd. Shame spread across faces. People lowered their phones. A woman in the front started clapping, slowly at first, then others joined. The applause grew louder. They weren't clapping for Tom's humiliation. They were clapping for James, for David, for every guard who had ever stood there and taken the abuse silently. Tom looked around at the applause. His face crumpled. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'm really sorry. I didn't think I wasn't thinking." James looked at David. David looked at the other guards. An unspoken conversation happened in that moment. A decision was being made, one that would ripple far beyond this single incident. What they decided next would either end Tom's vacation in a jail cell, or become a teaching moment that the entire world needed to see. Asterisk. David held up his hand. The other guards stayed in formation. The crowd held its breath. Tom's whole body was shaking now. His son had buried his face in his mother's leg. "You say you're sorry," David said. His voice was still firm, but something had softened. "But sorry doesn't fix the problem, because tomorrow someone else will do the same thing. And the next day, someone else. Do you understand that?" Tom nodded quickly, too quickly. Yes, I understand." "No, you don't," James said. Forward slightly, breaking his rigid stance for the first time. "Let me tell you something. Last year, I was in Helmand Province. My best friend died 20 feet away from me. I held his hand while he bled out. I came home and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I saw his face every time I closed my eyes." The crowd was completely silent now. Even Tom's son had stopped crying. "This uniform," James continued, touching his scarlet tunic, "represents service, sacrifice. It represents every soldier who ever stood guard, whoever protected people who didn't even know their names. And when you grabbed me, when you treated me like a prop, you disrespected all of that." A tear ran down Tom's cheek. His wife was openly sobbing now. David stepped beside James. "We could arrest you. We should arrest you. But we're not going to." Tom looked up, surprise breaking through his shame. "We're not going to arrest you," David continued, "because this needs to be about education, not punishment. But you're going to help us." Tom wiped his face. "Anything. I'll do anything." David pointed to the cameras, to the phones, to the live stream that now had 50,000 viewers. "You're going to tell them? All of them. Tell them what you did wrong. Tell them what you learned. Tell them why they need to treat these guards with respect." Tom's face flushed again, but this time was something different. "Determination?" He nodded. "Okay, yes. I'll do it." One of the tourists stepped forward with her phone. "I'm filming." "Go ahead." Tom took a deep breath. He looked directly at the camera. "My name is Tom Patterson. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I just made the biggest mistake of my trip. maybe of my life. His voice shook, but he kept going. I thought these guards were just, I don't know, decorations, entertainment. I was drunk and stupid, and I grabbed one of them, tried to take his hat off, and I want everyone watching to know that it was wrong. Completely wrong. He looked at James, then at David. These men are soldiers, real soldiers who fought in wars. They stand here in all weather, for hours, while people mock them and touch them and treat them like they're not human. And they do it because it's their duty, because they have honor. More cameras came out. The crowd had doubled in size. People in the back were standing on benches to see. If you're planning to visit London, Tom continued, please treat these guards with respect. Don't touch them. Don't mock them. Don't test them. They're not actors. They're not performers. They're protectors. And they deserve better than what I gave them today. His son stepped forward and hugged his leg. The boy looked up at James with wide eyes. I'm sorry too, the child said quietly. James's expression finally cracked. Just a little. He knelt down, careful with his rifle, and looked at the boy. What's your name, son? Michael? Michael, you didn't do anything wrong. But I want you to remember something, okay? Every person you meet, no matter what they're wearing or what job they're doing, they're a real person with feelings, with families, with stories. Can you remember that? Michael nodded seriously. I promise. James stood back up. He looked at Tom. We accept your apology, and we're grateful you're willing to help spread the message. But as Tom and his family started to walk away, something unexpected happened. Something none of them saw coming. Asterisk, a voice rang out from the palace entrance. Private Miller. Sergeant Chen, hold your positions. Everyone turned. A senior officer was striding toward them. His uniform was decorated with medals. His face was stern. This was Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Morrison, and he commanded the entire Guard regiment. James's heart sank. Officers didn't come out for tourist incidents. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Morrison stopped in front of the guards. His eyes swept over them, then over Tom, then over the massive crowd. The live stream now had over 200,000 viewers. Comments were flooding in from around the world. Sergeant Chen Morrison said coldly, Did you threaten to arrest this civilian? David stood at attention. Yes, sir. He assaulted Private Miller, sir. And did you then choose not to arrest him? Yes, sir. You made the decision that education would serve better than that was not your decision to make. Morrison cut him off. You are guards, not diplomats, not public relations officers. Guards, the crowd murmured. This was getting worse. Phones stayed up. Every word was being recorded. Tom stepped forward. Sir, please, this is my fault. They were professional. They were kind. Don't punish them for showing mercy. Morrison's eyes fixed on Tom. Mercy? You think they showed you mercy? They did their duty. But they broke protocol. And protocol exists for a reason. James felt his world crumbling. He'd stood his ground. He'd spoken up after years of silence. Now he was going to be punished for it. But then Morrison's expression changed, just slightly. A hint of something else appeared behind his stern mask. However, he said, his voice carrying across the square, perhaps protocol needs to change. The crowd went silent, confused. Morrison turned to face them all. For decades, we have taught our guards to stand silent, to endure, to accept mistreatment as part of their duty. We told them it was tradition. We told them it was necessary. He paused. His jaw worked. We were wrong. Gasps rippled through the crowd. James and David exchanged shocked glances. These men and women, Morrison continued, gesturing to the guards, are not statues. They are not tourist attractions. They are highly trained soldiers who volunteer for one of the most demanding posts in the British Army. And we have failed them by not protecting them from assault and harassment. He walked to James and stood beside him. Private Miller served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He received a commendation for valor. He saved 3 lives under fire. And he comes here every shift to be mocked and touched by strangers who think it's funny. Morrison's voice grew stronger. That ends today. Yes. As of this moment, new protocols are in effect. Any tourist who touches, harasses, or attempts to interfere with a king's guard will be immediately detained and charged. No warnings. No mercy. The rules just changed. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Others looked worried. The livestream comments went wild, but Tom looked relieved. His apology had meant something. His public confession had helped change something bigger than just his own mistake. Morrison turned back to David and James. "Sergeant Chen, Private Miller, you acted with honor and wisdom today. You reminded us all what these uniforms represent. Consider yourselves commended." James felt something break inside him. But it wasn't breaking apart. It was breaking open. Relief. Validation. Pride. Then Morrison did something unprecedented. He saluted them. It's not the other way around. Him saluting them. In front of thousands of people, the other guards snapped to attention and returned the salute. The crowd watched in respectful silence. Many were crying. The weight of the moment settled over everyone. But as Morrison walked back toward the palace, he stopped and turned once more. "One more thing," he called out. "Private Miller, I need to see you in my office immediately." James's relief vanished. David's face went pale. The crowd's mood shifted again. Certainty crept back in. What could Morrison possibly want now? Had James still done something wrong? Was the commendation just for show? James followed Morrison through the palace gates. His mind raced. His hands were sweating inside his white gloves. Behind him, the crowd was still buzzing with energy. David gave him a look that said, "Stay strong." They walked through corridors James had never seen before. Past portraits of kings and queens. Past rooms filled with history and secrets. Finally, Morrison stopped outside an oak door and gestured James inside. The office was smaller than James expected. Simple. There were photos on the desk. Morrison with troops. Morrison shaking hands with veterans. Morrison at a memorial service. "Sit down, Private," Morrison said, his voice gentler now. James sat, keeping his back straight. His training held even now. Morrison sank into his own chair and rubbed his face. Suddenly, he looked tired, much older than he had outside. "You know what the hardest part of command is, James?" James shook his head. "Watching good people suffer and knowing you're partly responsible." Morrison looked directly at him. "I knew, we all knew. Every officer, every commander, we knew our guards were being harassed, assaulted, humiliated, and we did nothing. We hid behind tradition, pulled open a drawer and took out a thick folder. These are incident reports. From just the last 6 months, 37 cases of tourists physically touching guards, 12 cases of items thrown at guards, 23 cases of verbal abuse caught on camera, and those are just the ones reported." James stared at the folder. He'd filed 3 reports himself. He knew of dozens more that had never been written up. "I got a call 5 minutes before I came out there," Morrison continued, "from Whitehall, from people very high up. They saw the live stream. They saw what was happening. And do you know what they said?" James's stomach tightened. They said it's about time someone took a stand. They said the public sentiment has shifted. People are tired of watching soldiers be treated like props. Morrison leaned forward. "James, that video is viral. Millions of views already, and the response is overwhelmingly in your favor. Yours and Sergeant Chin's." Relief flooded through James. "So we're not in trouble." "Trouble?" Morrison almost laughed. "James, you're about to become the face of a movement. BBC wants an interview. Good Morning Britain. Even American networks. Everyone wants to talk to the guard who finally spoke up." James felt dizzy. "Sir, I just wanted him to stop. I didn't mean to cause all this." "But you did. And it's exactly what we needed." Morrison stood and walked to the window. Outside, the crowd was still there, watching, waiting, giving you a choice, Private Miller. You can return to your post. We'll manage the media. We'll protect you from the attention. You can go back to being just another guard. He turned around. Or you can step forward. Be the voice for every soldier who's endured this treatment. Help us create real change. Not just new protocols, but a shift in how people see military service. James's mind spun. He'd joined the army to serve quietly, to do his duty. He'd never wanted attention, never wanted fame. But he thought about the new recruits, the young guards who would stand at these posts next year, and the year after. Did he want them to suffer the same way he had? Did he want them to feel invisible and disrespected? What would I have to do? James asked quietly. Morrison sat back down. Tell your story. Talk about what it's really like. Help people understand that behind these uniforms are human beings with families and feelings and breaking points. Make them see us. James thought about his friend who died in Afghanistan, about the nightmares he still had, about his sister who worried about him every day, about his mother who was so proud of his uniform. Will it actually change anything? James asked. Or will people forget in a week? I don't know, Morrison admitted. But I know this. That moment out there when you looked that man in the eyes and spoke your truth, that was real. That connected with people. And real connection is how change happens. James stood up. He squared his shoulders. Then I'll do it. For the guards who come after me, for the ones who couldn't speak up, I'll do it. Morrison smiled for the first time. Good man. He extended his hand and James shook it. Now there's someone outside who wants to meet you. Someone who saw the live stream. Morrison opened the door. James's breath caught in his throat. Because standing in the hallway, waiting patiently, was someone he never expected to see. His mother stood there, tears streaming down her face. James, she whispered. He rushed to her, hugged her. For the first time in months, he let himself feel the weight of everything. The fear, the exhaustion, the loneliness of standing silent while the world moved around him. How are you here? He asked. How did you know? I watch the palace live stream sometimes, she said, pulling back to look at him. Just to see you. Even if you're just standing there, it makes me feel closer to you. She laughed through her tears. And today I saw everything. I called the palace, demanded to see you, and someone very kind arranged it. Morrison smiled from the doorway. I'll give you both a moment. When they were alone, James's mother cupped his face in her hands. I heard what you said. About your friend. About what you carry. Baby, why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to worry you. You were already so scared when I deployed. I'm your mother, she said firmly. Your burdens are my burdens. Your pain is my pain. You don't have to stand guard alone in life, James. Not with me. Not with people who love you. They sat together on a bench in the hallway. She held his hand like she did when he was little. That man today, he was wrong. But in a way, I'm grateful to him. Because he made you speak. He made the world see you. And maybe now, things will change. I'm scared, Mom, James admitted. The interviews. The attention. What if I mess it up? What if I say the wrong thing? You won't, 'cause you'll speak from your heart. Just like you did today, she squeezed his hand. Your father would be so proud of you. Standing up like that. James's father had been a soldier too. He died 5 years ago. Cancer from chemical exposure during the Gulf War. You think so? I know so. He always said the bravest thing a soldier can do is show vulnerability. Show the world that strength and sensitivity can live in the same heart. 3 weeks later, James sat in a television studio. The lights were bright. The cameras were intimidating. But he remembered his mother's words. He thought about David and the other guards. About Tom and little Michael. About everyone who needed to hear this. The interview was watched by 15 million people. James talked about his service, about his struggles, about what it meant to stand as a symbol while feeling invisible as a person. He cried when he talked about his friend. He smiled when he talked about the moment the crowd applauded. The response was overwhelming. Letters poured in from veterans, from tourists who admitted they'd been disrespectful, from children who drew pictures of guards and wrote, "Thank you for protecting us." The new protocols Morrison announced became official policy. Signs were posted around all royal residences. The guards are active duty soldiers. Do not touch or interfere with them. Violators will be prosecuted. Security cameras were upgraded. Protection officers were assigned to watch for harassment. Tom, Patterson's video apology was turned into an educational campaign by the British Tourism Board. It played in airports and hotels. Respect Our Guards became a movement. Merchandise sales donated money to veteran charities, but the biggest change was invisible. It was in the eyes of the guards themselves. They stood taller, not because they felt superior, but because they felt seen, respected, valued. 6 months later, James received a letter. It was from Tom's son, Michael. The boy was 9 now. He'd written in careful handwriting, "Dear Private Miller, I think about what you said every day. I try to see everyone as a real person now, even people who look different from me. Thank you for teaching me. When I grow up, I want to be brave like you." James pinned the letter to his mirror. He read it every morning before his shift, because it reminded him why he'd spoken up, why he'd taken the risk, why vulnerability had been worth it. That day outside Buckingham Palace, James Miller looked a tourist in the eyes and said, "Sir, step back." Now he didn't know he was starting a revolution. He was just tired, just human, just asking to be treated with dignity. But sometimes that's all it takes. One person, one moment, one decision to say, enough. The world watches the royal guards every day. Now, finally, the guards were watching back, and the world was learning to meet their gaze with respect. James still stands at his post, still wears his scarlet uniform with pride, still maintains the discipline and tradition that defines the King's Guard. But now, when tourists gather around him, there's something different in the air. A reverence, an understanding, a recognition that behind the ceremony stands a human being who deserves honor, and on the hardest days. When the rain falls and his legs ache and the memories threaten to overwhelm him, James thinks about that moment, about finding his voice, about standing up not just as a soldier, but as a person. Some battles are fought with weapons. Others are fought with words. Both require courage. Both require sacrifice. And both can change the world. This was the story of when the royal guards finally fought back. Not with violence, but with truth, and the world listened.